We're soon going to be publishing our own constructs and getting those packaged up and ready to reuse, just like you would do across multiple projects or even as working as part of a team. To do that, we're going to need somewhere to publish our constructs to. Now, we could use NPM, and you can pay for an NPM subscription for an organization, and then you have a private namespace which you can put all your packages in. But I think a cheaper solution, and one that's easier if you're already in the AWS world, is CodeArtifact. And you can see there's pricing for CodeArtifact, so you get charged for storage, but the storage is only 5 cents per gigabyte per month, and a gigabyte is a hell of a lot really when you're just storing code. And then you get some charge for requests, and again it's pretty reasonable, and then you get normal data transfer costs, which would be 9 cents per gigabyte thereabouts when you're downloading files. So let's create a CodeArtifact repository. I'm just going to call this, well, call it anything I like really. Let's call it CDK Course. Don't need a description. And you might be thinking, oh, well, we should put the NPM repository on here, right, as the upstream. But actually, we're only going to store our packages in this NPM repository, or this CodeArtifact repository. And we're only going to use the repository for just our stuff. So we're not going to download the regular NPM packages and pull them through CodeArtifact. You might have used things like JFrog's Artifactory or similar tools before, where there's a local cache of packages stored on some server somewhere. But actually, we're not going to use that, or that kind of functionality, if you like. We're not going to use that caching, that saving. We're just going to put our private stuff in CodeArtifact, and that keeps the cost really, really low, almost free really, by the time you've added it up. So we're going to create a domain for our repository, and let's call this CDK Course, and you can see that's going to form part of the URL we use for accessing CodeArtifact. We'll click on next, and then we see we've got our repository called CDK Course. We've got our domain called CDK Course, so let's click on create. All right, so that's made for us. Let's click on view connection instructions. So there's actually a ton of different options for different package managers. We're using NPM at the moment, so we're going to use NPM in the package manager selection here, and then we're going to use the recommended method, which is configure using AWS CLI. And then we're going to take this command here and we're going to save it somewhere useful. So what I'll do is I will make a new folder called my test package. We'll pop into my test package. We will do an npm init. And then I'm going to come up with some kind of namespace. Now the namespace you choose here, it really doesn't matter as long as it's valid in terms of the characters that you use. So I could call it CDK Course if I like. And then we'll put a / and the name of our package. So this is going to be my test package. Doesn't matter about the version or description, I'm not really interested in that. And I'll just enter all the way through these until we get the preview of the package JSON, and I can just say yes, that I'm happy with that. So we've got our command that we copied from the console. I'm going to make a README, and inside the README I'm just going to put a little bash code block, and I'm going to paste in the command, and actually I'm going to put the effort in to spread this out over several lines so it's a little bit easier to see. And then this is an example for people that want to connect to our repository, including us in a week when we've forgotten how it works and we have to go back and see how it works again. All right, so if we ran this CodeArtifact command as is, with no changes, it would point us to that NPM repository for all packages, which wouldn't work because we've set no upstream on our CodeArtifact repository. So let's take the command here, AWS CodeArtifact login. I'm just going to save this README. And we'll pop help after the command, and we'll run that. And you'll see that we have a namespace parameter. And the namespace is going to be slightly different depending on what package manager you're using with. But in the NPM world, it's the @CDK course we put at the start of our package name. And of course, the repository name, domain name, and namespace don't have to match up. And you can do this. You can run this command multiple times for multiple namespaces if you wish. So let's just pop that there, another / so we can get a new line. Let's put in our namespace, and we're going to call this CDK Course. So I will copy that, ready for us to use it. I will save our README again, so we've got it as a reference, and then I will run the command. Okay, so that says successfully configured npm to use AWS CodeArtifact repository, which is great. And we can give it a bit of a test in both scenarios. So let's install a very common public package like Express. Then let's look in our package lock, and you can see that the resolved value for this package is still registry.npmjs.org. So it's still the public npm repository. And then we can publish this package, but we'll see that when we publish it, it goes to our private one. So let's do an npm publish, and it says publish to CDK Course, the account ID, .d.codeartifact, and so on and so forth. And that's it. That's our published package. So let's close out of that documentation there. Let's click on refresh, and we can see we now have one package inside of our CodeArtifact repository here. So we set up a CodeArtifact repository and domain. We gained instructions for logging in and authenticating npm with CodeArtifact. We added in the -- namespace because we don't want to fetch or push public packages to CodeArtifact. We're going to use the regular npm registry with those. And we verified that that was still working as expected by installing a package and looking in our package lock, which tells you the full path to download that file.